Shrek is love, Shrek is life. A phrase most have heard before, and it was certainly true if you were a kid like me from 2001 to 2004, with Shrek 1 and 2. It was actually even more popular than anything from Disney or Pixar during the times the films were popular. To put it into perspective, I'll collectively take Shrek 1 and 2 over Toy Story 1 and 2.
You're mocking me, aren't you?
That's not a slight on the first two Toy Stories, those are fantastic as well. But Shrek 1 and 2 just had this all-around fun, edgy quality that you couldn't get from other animated films, especially from Disney. When the first Shrek came out, it was that rare animated film that was directed for kids, but it was arguably more fun for adults than kids. The writing, hilarious, voice acting top-notch, and there was just this fun overall nasty quality that you couldn't get from other animated films. In one of my recent trips to the movie theater, I saw an ad for the theatrical re-release of Shrek 2 to celebrate its 20th anniversary, and I just had to go to see it. As a side note, I should also say that I did actually see the first two Shreks in theaters when they came out. I was 5 and 8 years old, respectively. The story, for those who haven't seen the film, which shame on you if you haven't, fresh off of their honeymoon, Shrek and Fiona are summoned by the king and queen of Far, Far Away, aka Fiona's parents, which needless to say they are quite surprised to see that their daughter has married an ogre. To put things right, the fairy godmother takes matters into her own magical hands to deliver Fiona and her family an ogre-free happily ever after, utilizing her son, Prince Charming. There are just certain times where all the elements come together for a perfect sequel. It's a lightning in a bottle type effect scenario that you only get with a few sequels, where the story, the characters, and just the overall experience are just on point. You know, The Dark Knight is probably my favorite example of this, where you watch it and it's like, holy perfection. But then you got other movies like The Empire Strikes Back, Aliens, Top Gun Maverick, and Shrek 2 is among that class. With Shrek 2, you just have the perfect story. You know, the new setting of Far, Far Away is just great. All of the new characters introduced are wonderful. You know, Puss in Boots was obviously great enough to get his own movies. The real game changer here, though, is the fairy godmother. You know, in those first two Shrek films, they just did a great job of subverting expectations from what you would expect from certain fairy tale characters. But I think the fairy godmother is the crown jewel of everything they've done with that. When it comes to animated villains, you obviously think Disney first. But if you were to put this fairy godmother into that mix, oh, she'd be easily top 5 amongst those legendary villains. She's that good in this. She's a great antagonistic force to Shrek and Fiona's romance, which naturally is the heart of the movie. It just goes through such believable ups and downs as the tension brought in from Fiona's father drives one of the film's best scenes, the infamous dinner scene. But it's all great because Shrek, for all of his ogre nastiness and cantankerousness, really does love Fiona, and she feels likewise. It's obviously not an easy situation though, bringing an ogre into a house of royals in a castle. It's just an overall perfect next chapter in their relationship. But we can't forget the reason why most people love Shrek, the first two anyway, and that's because the movies are hilarious. Here, they just mined the material of fairy tale lore perfectly. They had a fun amount of real-world references, and it just feels like they had just some excellent, probably some of the best comedy writers working on this movie. I mean, just the continued great interplay between Shrek and Donkey is enough to get plenty of laughs here.
Are we there yet?
But the scene that had my auditorium just dying of laughter, Roger Rabbit style, was the chase scene that parallels the TV show Cops. Here in this movie, it's Knights. The timing of this re-release was just perfect as it paralleled the infamous O.J. Simpson highway chase, with referring to Donkey in his stallion form as a white Bronco, the infamous white Bronco that O.J. Simpson used to run away from the police or drive away from the police. And of course, with O.J. Simpson having passed away a few days ago, really heightened the holy LOL factor behind watching this scene. Not because I think people were celebrating his death, I don't really want to go into that, but just because, like, wow, watching this the week that he passed away was hella timely. But like I said, my theater was busting up laughing at this scene. It was just all around hilarious. Through all the brilliance that you find in this movie, the crown jewel though scene has got to be that I Need a Hero sequence, as the fairy godmother is singing a pumped up version of that Holding Out for a Hero song for Fiona and Charming dancing, while Shrek and the gang are busting into the castle using the giant gingerbread man Mongo. This whole sequence was so much hype in 2004, and it still is 20 years later. It's just one of those sequences that just leaves you pumped as a kid, feeling like, wow, I want to be in this scene. As an adult, I want to be in this scene still too. No movie should ever try to do a Holding Out for a Hero sequence after this movie, because it'll just look lame in comparison. I'm looking at you, Super Mario Brothers movie. I've actually seen a whole lot of re-releases over the past year, all of them being Disney re-releases, whether it's for their 100-year celebration, a special milestone like Nightmare Before Christmas's 30th anniversary, or various Pixar films that never got a chance to be on the big screen because of the pandemic. And while I've had a great experience with most of those, this was easily the best re-release experience I've ever had because of one, how great the film was, and two, the audience that I saw the movie with was just so into the film as if everyone was watching it for the first time, busting up laughing at all the jokes, reacting to certain dialogue and character moments, and I was right along with them. It's truly a wonderful thing when a re-release can draw this big of audience like the one that was in my auditorium seeing Shrek 2. It's just a great thing. And by the time you get to the ending, Viva Loca sequence, you just feel like, wow, there's just not a lot of animated films that can top this. 10 out of 10 dirty green sausages for Shrek 2.
Don't you point those dirty green sausages at me!
The problem was that Shrek 2 was actually too good, to where any sequel was just gonna pale in comparison. With Shrek the Third, while not a completely awful movie, just didn't really have a chance in following up Part 2, and was much inferior to that movie in more than one way. And like most, I didn't think Part 4 was spectacular. I did think it was solid though, and it was a fair outing for a final chapter of sorts. But you know, in the back of everyone's mind, whenever they bring up a potential Shrek 5, it's always that thought, just please be as great as Shrek 2. We just want another one of those, please. Amazingly though, for as spectacular as Shrek 2 was, it actually did not win the Oscar for Best Animated Film for 2004. That went to Disney and Pixar's The Incredibles, which came out later that year. I actually think this is pretty debatable between Shrek 2 and The Incredibles. I mean, The Incredibles is fantastic, don't get me wrong, it definitely lives up to its name. But if I'm comparing the two, I would definitely have to give the edge to Shrek 2. It's just, like I said, an all-around, just perfect story, sequel, it's got better animation, just everything. Maybe it's because in 2001, Shrek 1 beat out Pixar's Monsters, Inc. for Best Animated Film, so maybe they're trying to make it up to Pixar for this one in 2004. It's super close, but if I had to give one the edge, I would give Shrek 2 the edge over the first Incredibles, but both are amazing movies though. 2004 was definitely a great summer to be a kid though, because I got to see Shrek 2 in theaters. You also had Spider-Man 2, and then Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, so 3 sensational sequels during the summer season of 2004. So that'll do it for this video, this review of Shrek 2 for its 20th anniversary. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you for watching.